This is a regular monthly meeting of the Princeton Historic Preservation Commission being held electronically via Zoom on May 15th, 2023 at 4 p.m. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting has been transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, the Times, Trentonian, and filed with the clerk of Princeton, who has posted it to the municipal website, www.princetonnj.gov/meetings. I think that's all I need to say. Elizabeth, do you want to do the roll call?
Yes. Ms. Satterfield?
Here.
Mr. Shafskin?
Here.
Ms. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Pyle? Mr. Endersby?
Here.
Ms. Lewandowski?
Here.
Ms. Friedman? Mr. Shore? Ms. Capozzoli?
Here.
We do have a quorum. Thank you.
All right. Well, since we have a few people missing, I think maybe we should wait for announcements until after everybody shows up. We do have the resolution for the Paul Robeson House. I think that was in our packets. If everybody got a copy of that, are there any changes to that? Yeah, Elric. Oh, Shirley.
It actually has to do with you, Shirley. I think you said you didn't hear all the entire conversation about the piers in the front of the building.
I didn't hear all of it because something was wrong with my computer, but I was, when it was voted on, I thought they meant the pillars, the pillars that were made of brick. I didn't see the back of it. I couldn't see the back. And then when it was, when we said okay, I was okaying the pillars, not the back, not the brick, but it has already been passed. And I talked to Kevin, and Kevin said, since it has been passed, he's not going to change it. And I and Elizabeth went to talk with him about it. What he will change are the plaques, because there won't be two plaques on the building. There'll just be the one that was on the building when it was, before it was constructed. And the one that is the standing one will be in the front of the building. So there won't be two plaques. That's the only thing he's changing. And I did talk with him about covering the plaques, but he has decided not to.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So with those changes, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the resolution? Oh, and here's David.
Since I missed the meeting, I don't think I can vote, correct?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah, Christine.
If I voted no, can I vote for the resolution? No.
No. Oh yeah. And I think Frida, you voted abstain.
I voted no.
No.
Voted, yeah.
Okay. So
So I've joined the meeting. What's the issue?
we're just trying to pass the resolution for the Paul Robeson House.
Okay.
And so Shirley amended the resolution to reflect the status of the plaques. And Shirley and Elizabeth talked to Kevin, and so we made a slight modification, but I'm just waiting for a motion to approve the resolution.
Can I ask a question? Ed, the amendment that has to do with the other plaque, that can't be amended here because it wasn't talked about. So Kevin really has to write a request to amend it, right? To actually.
That's correct. We didn't look at it last time, although he's agreed to it. So we'll get a letter from Kevin committing to do exactly what Shirley said.
Okay.
Okay. So David, do you want to move to approve the resolution?
I believe I had left the meeting by that time.
He did.
Oh,
He
you
didn't vote on it.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So it's really between Shirley and Alric.
I make a motion to approve the resolution, as I said, to change the plaques so that one is in the front and one is on the building, not two on the building.
Okay. All right. Which we will get a letter from Kevin after this is approved. Okay. And Alric, do you second it?
I'll second.
Okay. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Now we do have 29 Lytle Street on the agenda as an application for new solar panels, which are not new at all now. Are they here?
I'm going to ask if someone in the public is here for the application for 29 Lytle Street. Can you please raise your electronic hand? I don't recognize anyone at this point, but perhaps they have a different representative. So there's no hands raised.
Okay.
This is a little bit problematic because they were on the agenda since February, and we just keep on rolling them over month to month.
Yeah, this is 4 months where they haven't shown up. Ed, what are we supposed to do?
Well, I would recommend that I send them a letter explaining that they're in violation of the ordinance and that they expect to have them in at the meeting in June. And if they're not in June, then we'll file a complaint in municipal court for violating the ordinance.
Okay.
And I also believe they never got a building permit.
They did not get a building permit. That's actually probably one of the reasons too, because they didn't get a zoning permit, they didn't get a building permit, and they didn't get a historic preservation approval.
Christine, we would work with John Pantinati and we would incorporate all those things into the letter.
Okay, thank you.
And let me know if you need any contact information, but I think that it was in the application, but they do have a new representative for their company. The one that was there is no longer representing them. There's a new person.
Can you send me that information?
Yes.
Thanks.
All right. So the next application, I'll recuse. So do you want to kick me off?
Yes, I'll put you in the public.
Okay.
David, where is he?
He's there.
Oh, David, could you put on your camera? Because we'd like for you to chair this portion since, as you know, Julie needs to recuse herself.
Is there any item that can go ahead of us on the agenda? I'll be home in about 5 minutes.
Do you want to do the Arts Council, Madam Chair?
Yeah, I mean, if it's okay with Marcia and Bruce, you know, since we're going earlier than we thought, we could go over and to the Arts Council item and then go to their application.
Okay. Rich Albano is their representative. The Wilsies are not here, so he is the solar company representing the applicant. So Richard, let's see. I see you here. If it's okay, we'd like to talk about this other matter, but his hand is raised. Maybe I can.
You want to bring him over?
Yeah, Rich, I'm going to bring you over. Oh, and here's Leighton.
Yeah, Leighton's in the
Yeah, I'm going to move him over.
audience.
Okay, I see Rich.
Rich, you're muted.
How about now?
Good.
Good.
We're good.
So,
all right. Thank you.
are you okay if we move to a different application, because we have to have, our chair has to recuse herself and we're waiting for the vice chair to arrive.
Sure, whatever you need to do, I'm fine. I'm
Okay,
here.
very good. So we're just going to ask you to just kind of turn your camera off and mute yourself until we get to you. Thank you.
All right, so our next item of business is the Arts Council Plaza, HPC Subcommittee, Witherspoon Street improvements. I really, really liked Elric's sketch. Elizabeth, do you want to share your screen?
Okay, let's see.
Julie, just a clarification, what's our role here?
I think what we're trying to determine is if we are going to recommend a new project. Since the sidewalk around the Arts Council is already progressing, we would have to recommend this as a second project. But I'm not sure if everybody got to see Elric's sketch. So and after we see it, maybe Elizabeth can explain like engineering's timing.
Can you see this?
I see you clicking on the file.
Oh, but can you see this yet?
Not yet.
No, not yet.
It's an impressive organizational tree, though.
I know. I was like, wow, you're really organized.
It says your screen sharing, but it doesn't seem to be. Let's see.
Unless maybe it's taking a while to load.
Let me see if I can try again.
Few options.
Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing. Let's try again. Nope.
I could do it this way.
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on, I got it. Now I get it. All right.
Do you already have to have it open before you share?
I think so. New share. How about this? Do you see that? Or did it happen too quick?
No, I think it kicked you off.
Oh, here. How about that?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
All right.
Okay. Yay.
Okay. So what happened is the subcommittee had talked with engineering and presented this concept plan that Elric had worked out, because they all agreed that they thought this was really a great solution to the transition from the commercial district to the Witherspoon-Jackson with the sidewalk system. And it, you know, it is respectful of what the Arts Council had done with their original sidewalk, which there's this kind of like diagonal direction towards their entrance. And what happened is there is a large portion of the sidewalk area that is not the public right-of-way. It's their property. So that's the reason that originally was designed that way. And I'm sure it was incorporated with the municipality when they had agreed to that. So to be respectful for them, engineering asked them, you know, what they were thinking about. And that's when they shared the reason that they had designed it that way. As you recall from last month, engineering had a different design, and HPC came up with a radial design, which was also different. But this one, the subcommittee felt that, you know, it really does work well with the Witherspoon-Jackson design. What's happening is, can you see my cursor?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what happened is the Witherspoon Street in the Witherspoon-Jackson Historic District has a different design where it's edged with pavers, and then the center is poured concrete. So it was very hard to transition from whatever might have been, whether it was a radial design coming out or the engineering, which was just really kind of like this rectangular block. And it didn't seem like it was a very cohesive design. And this one seems to work the best. And at the same time, it does kind of, you know, present this entrance to the Arts Council, which is what their interest was all along. And also it was easy to transition to the Paul Robeson sidewalk, whether they continue this edging here or not. I think on both ends, the transition works well with this kind of like ripple effect.
Yeah.
So, but what engineering said to the subcommittee is they cannot do this for timing, and also their contractor does not have that type of skill, I'd say, to be able to do a custom design like this. They really just, you know, do the block sidewalks, pavements, and things like that. And they felt that if HPC wanted this, that they should ask for a special project. And the subcommittee felt that this was worthy of a special project, you know, that they felt that, you know, rushing to get something done, and just because it wasn't originally thought about in the original design shouldn't be a reason that it shouldn't be improved. Because this is a very important intersection. It really ties in the downtown and the Witherspoon-Jackson, because as you all recall, this was the YMYWCA in this neighborhood. So they wanted to bring it to the commission and see if they supported a special project. And if that's so, I think that they would like to present a memo or a resolution, whatever is appropriate, to present to the council, and hopefully with our council liaison that Leighton would be supportive, or, you know, if he's got some comments on this, to also present that now.
Okay, thanks. So I hope everybody's had a chance to see the drawing.
Should I take it down?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay. Does anyone
Can I
have
ask a question? Has anybody at the Arts Council had any comments?
Yeah, so Adam, let's see. Adam had a question because when he saw it originally, he wanted to know, he said, am I to understand that the blue curved lines in the drawings are directional, showing how the pavers are to be installed, or is that street? And what I had said to him, which was before I got your comment, Elric, was that the 4 red radial lines on the sketch are pavers and the blue curved lines is the poured concrete. And then Elric, maybe you could explain what your vision was when you originally did this design.
Briefly, is the tower, which I've shown as sort of the focal point here, is blue brick, and the retaining walls in the front of the building are red brick. My notion was to use those exact materials, possibly having glazing the bricks with the red bricks, but in any event, having them as, you know, within the design and pouring the concrete within those spaces.
And what Adam had said when I told him that the intent was, I didn't realize the red, but I knew that the blue was to kind of play off the blue brick on the building. And he was, I guess he questioned, was it a material that was appropriate because of the glaze on it to be on a surface? But he says if it wasn't the same one, maybe it could be something similar to kind of work in that connection between the two. And I was thinking that the other design, the red, I actually thought that we were going to use the pavers along the edge to kind of make it a continuation. But, you know, I mean, I think that's open for discussion for the HPC. I mean, if they're going to make a recommendation, which one would they prefer?
Well, Elizabeth, aren't they already doing the sidewalks with the paver siding where it's shown on the drawing?
So what happened is the original design, which was neither the one that the engineer presented to the Arts Council, it was the original one that they had for phase 1, which is just, I think, just pavers in this area and the direction that they have along the central business district, that they are putting it in as is. They said that they have to do something and they're just putting it in that way. And any change, again, would be a special project that they would come back and make the change in this area.
Well, since they're not going to be doing this for a while, I mean, maybe we should just wait and see what they do and then see if that could be improved, or if they, because the idea would be that we would tear out what they just are doing now in this area and do this instead.
Right. I don't know if you recall that site plan that I provided.
Mm-hmm.
So that site plan, I'm going to try to mark it on here. I'm just looking. So they had the edging of the pavers, actually was the whole thing between this wall along Paul Robeson all the way down to the curb line. And so all of this was going to be just the pavers. And that was going to go, I think that it was actually going all the way down here to Green Street. It doesn't, I'm not sure that it's going to show this edging on it at all.
Because they're working on this area right now.
Yes, they wanted them to finish because they need to move on to phase 2, and these are not the same contractors they're using for phase 2. That's why they want them to be done.
Oh, got it. Because I know I drove by today and this part is done. The edging's done.
This one here?
By the driveway, yeah, this part is done.
Okay, yeah, because I can't remember what the contractor's name is, but I was told by engineering it is not the same company they're using for phase 1 with phase 2.
Okay.
Because that would have been different. That's why I said, well, can't you just do the rest of it and then do this one? And they said, well, they can't because they want to be finished with them.
Right.
They finished the side by the cemetery up until I think Green Street. And I thought that the pavers there are going to be the same as what's across the street. So, but what I'm understanding now is that the edges are going to be either bluish or red according to what's on the building. Is that correct? It won't be the same as what's across the street?
No.
Well, explain it to me. I thought that it would be just like what's across the street, Elric.
My role in this is only to come up with a concept, and I'm not quite sure of who was on the subcommittee and what the subcommittee was charged with in the first place, and how we're allowed to have any say-so at all.
No, I like what you're doing. I like that idea. I just wanted to know if the edgings are the same as the edgings that are across the street, because those are already done. That's all I'm asking.
So Shirley, the edgings across the street, are they edged with the pavers and then concrete in the middle?
Yes, it's a grayish, it's a grayish edge, yes.
Yeah, I believe, and I'm looking at the plan that was the base plan from engineering. I believe, I'm not actually sure. I mean, maybe the subcommittee could tell me, because the way it's drawn, this was before phase 2 came in, and the sidewalk in the Witherspoon-Jackson neighborhood was recommended to be a little bit different because it's a different neighborhood.
Right, I understand that. And I really like what Elric has done there. I just wanted to know if, because you said something about red and blue, and that's when I got confused. Is it going to be like across the street, or are the sides going to be comparable to what's on the building? That's all I'm asking.
So Shirley, go ahead. Shirley, it's not decided yet. What you see already installed is what was originally approved. What we're discussing here is perhaps bringing in a second design later on. And that's what we would potentially vote on tonight.
And just for this side, Shirley, because the Arts Council has this unusually large shaped plaza area.
Right, yeah, I know that, yeah.
And then they also have kind of a wide sidewalk,
right,
too, with the little benches along the sides as well, and the wall. So the transition was hard, like the one across the street on the cemetery side, that's very linear, and that's going to continue all the way down. But this one is a little bit different. So the reason that the HPC subcommittee was brought into is because engineering came up with a new design that they had presented with the Arts Council to address their concerns that there'd be something kind of directional to their building. And when HPC subcommittee reviewed it, they felt that there was probably a better design that might work a little bit better as far as the integration of the design is already done in the central business and also for the Witherspoon Street. So that's why, you know, they had reached out and Elric had presented this with the same linear edging. Whether it's going to be the red, the blue, or the gray pavers like you see across the street, those details are things that's going to be discussed now, but it's really to ask the commission, what do they feel about this modified design?
Right.
And
I think I understand all of that. And I like that drawing. I was just asking about the colors, that's all.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I would say that the edge of the between the street and that outside edge should probably retain the same paved exterior line all the way around. And then if you take a look at the four red directional what do I mean to say, linear aspects going back again to the point at the middle of the big blue circle where the tower is. That would be that they would define the edge of this special treatment. They would correspond to the walls and the steps that are already in place. And I would like to see them done in the same red as the bricks in the retaining walls.
Okay.
Blue, I was hoping that they could do a couple of courses in the same glazed brick just to define those. And in between would be the same concrete paved so that you'd have elements of both, but it would be that would sort of direct you to the special facility and specifically the entrance and the stairs leading to the entrance. I have one other quick comment. That is that I know Tom sometime back pointed out the fact that the scale of the bust for Robeson was so small and so oddly with the head pitched back. He wondered if there couldn't be something more significant. You can see barely a circle in front of that central area where the statue is now. Right. My notion was that at some point in the future, something larger, some other piece of sculpture could be inserted in that area. You can see that the stairs can't go in the middle up to the building because that's where that one column is that supports the roof above it. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Sorry to
Elric, thank you, Elric. You answered you exactly answered what I was asked, what I was trying to ask. Thank you very much for that. And I like it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Ms. Lewandowski has her hand up.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm a little confused. The blue curved lines here, they are the steps?
No.
These are the steps, Christine.
Where?
These are the existing steps.
Where do they end to the sidewalk?
They end right here.
So what are these lines then?
Those are bricks that are set into the concrete.
And that's part of the original, or is that the new part?
That's new, and I don't know how much of that property is actually retained by the Arts Council. Elizabeth, do you know that?
Yeah, so if I'm looking at it, so there, the right of way is like this. It's very unusual. It goes down here and then it hits an angle like this and goes like that.
So, yeah.
So actually the edge of where that bus drop off is the edge of their right of way. So this whole sidewalk in here is their property. And this part here, this area is their property.
Okay.
So Elizabeth, I really feel like we need to go back to the Arts Council, especially since they're already putting in material right now. And I did see some of the sidewalk finished in this area, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, because it is their property.
Right. Oh yeah, it would definitely be in coordination with them, but it might be a good idea to see how it looks as it's installed. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I mean, they are literally installing it right now. So maybe we should wait and see what it looks like.
Okay, so does the subcommittee recommend waiting a couple months to see how it looks, or?
I mean, yeah, Christine?
If they're putting that in right now, it's not going to be a situation in the future where they're going to have to rip some of it up, right? Or am I wrong on that?
Well, if the commission likes this design, then they would have to rip part of it up. Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, for that reason, I feel like
why it's a good reason to wait and see. Mm-hmm. Okay. So
Leighton has a question.
Is everyone in agreement that it would be good just to wait a couple months to see how it looks, and just think about it, and then if they want to go ahead, then have a conversation with the Arts Council and engineering again?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you know, they are very much in the process of putting those pavers down now, and my suggestion would be, but it's not a strong suggestion, it's a moderate or weak suggestion, is so let's give it a chance to see what it does look like, to see what the design looks like, to just kind of savor it for a minute. I do agree that the Arts Council is a beltway and a gateway and a crossroads from one part of historic Princeton to another part of historic Princeton, and to the degree that that can be highlighted and elevated, I think is a great idea. But I think, again, let's give it a chance to see what this looks like, and if at some time in the future, perhaps we are putting a bigger bust of Paul Robeson there, we might want to look at a major change of influence and of direction for the high. And Eldrick, I think it's a great layout, and I do think in the future it is something that we should consider, and I would be happy to escort that toward my colleagues as a suggestion. Just not today or tomorrow.
Right.
Okay.
All right. So should we maybe revisit this like in August?
Yeah. David's got his hand up, Julie.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not in any way arguing one way or the other. I just want to ask the practical question, although I do really like when you go to the eye doctor, is this better than this? Is this better than that? I do like the idea of seeing what this is going to look like now. But my practical question is there any likelihood that will ever be changed once it's in? Even if we say, oh, we really have a much better design, or is it more like, you know, in the 5 to 10 year horizon when perhaps a new statue is coming and it would just seem fiscally that they would allow it to be ripped up at that point. I just trying to figure this out. You know, I don't want us to be, you know, that commission that makes a lot of difficulties for the town, and now they want this thing ripped out. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
it does. It does, and we certainly, you know, can take the patient's temperature, you know, before we administer the medicine. If you would trust me to do some reconnaissance work for you, and get back to you within the next 4 or 5 days.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the reason that it got to this is because, you know, the subcommittee was asked to look at this. They made their comments. They had suggestions about what they thought was good. And then engineering says, well, we can't do it now, but if you want to ask for a special project, you know, that's the way to go. And I think that that's how we got to this point. So, but I think it's good. And see.
Yeah. And I would say I'm very confident, David and all, that should we come up with something that is spectacular and much better than is already there, that there would be an appetite to change it, because it is, as I said, it's a gateway. It is a place that deserves all of the attention that it could get with respect to how well it is done. And I want to just give a nod to Tom, who said, and by the way, we got to do something about that small bust as well. So thanks for the small bust remark, Tom.
All right. Well, I think this has been fruitful. So we will revisit this in a couple months, and Leighton will be doing his reconnaissance. And in the meantime, we'll get to see what they actually laid in the pavement and, you know, kind of assess it. All right. So no memo for now, Ed. You're off the hook. And David is, are you ready to take over?
I am.
Okay, good. All right. So you can kick me out.
I'm going to place you in the other room, Madam Chair. Let's see. Oh, I should change my name too. Sorry about that. Okay. Rich, I guess you could turn your camera back on.
Okay.
David, do you want me to review the memo, or would you like to go straight to the applicant?
No, I was going to ask you exactly if you would review the memo for everybody.
Okay, great. Okay, so the applicant and the property owner is Bruce Wilsey, and he has filed an application pursuant to the Princeton Historic Preservation Ordinance to install a solar array field at his property at 197 Mercer Road. The site is further identified as block 10102, lot 11 on the Princeton tax map. The property contains 3.5 acres and lies within the former Princeton Township R1 zone. These plans were reviewed by the zoning officer, and he advises that the application complies with zoning requirements and that the solar array panels are not required to contribute to any impervious coverage calculations. This property lies within the Princeton Battlefield and Stony Brook Settlement Historic District of the overlay zoning map. This district is a local, state, and nationally registered historic district. The Stony Brook community was founded during the 1960s when a group of Quaker families bought land along the northeast and west of the brook. Large parcels of land were owned by known names such as Daniel Brinson from Burlington, John Houghton, Richard Stockton, John Horner, William Olden, Joseph Worth, and Benjamin Clark Jr. of Perth Amboy, all names which I'm sure all the commission members recalls. The village of Stony Brook is an important settlement in history that symbolizes the importance of Quaker influence in central New Jersey. The district is characterized by spatial relationships of buildings to farmlands that depicted rural communities throughout New Jersey during the 18th century and the high incidence of buildings that stood during the January 3rd, 1977 Battle of Princeton. So this property is situated on the northbound side of Mercer Road near the corner of Gallup Road. The house on the property is 2.5 stories and positioned closer to the south side property line with generous rear and north side yards. The house is set back approximately 124 feet from the Mercer Road right-of-way with large trees, mostly evergreen, in the front yard. The front door faces south with the Stony Brook to its east. The house was built circa 1760 to 1775 in the Federal style. Georgian and Federal era additions were added to the original house. The building has a fieldstone foundation, clapboard siding, and gable roofs with 2 end chimneys. So this application is probably going to be familiar with for many of you because the applicant received approval to construct a conservatory addition to the existing house in September of 2018 and to demolish an existing non-historic open 1-story 2-car garage near the side property line, slightly southeast of the house. And to date, the work for the garage has not begun. This property is designated on Princeton's Historic District overlay as Type 1, which is subject to preservation plan review from any changes visible from the Type 1 district or from the public right-of-way. So the applicant wishes to install a ground-mounted PV solar array field in the front yard of the property. The field will cover approximately 52 feet by 28-foot area, which is currently a flower bed and lawn area. The installation will be for a 16.8 kilowatt DC system installed with ground screws. The existing white picket fence is proposed to extend around the solar array field as a visual barrier. So details of solar array, I'm not going to go through it too much. I'm going to leave it up to the applicant. But again, it is in the front yard. It's approximately 36 feet from the public right-of-way. And its distance is fairly far, almost 158 feet from the northern side property line and 262 feet approximately from the southern side property line and 263 feet from the east rear property line. So again, the property is large and there is a lot of area in which this property will sit. The solars will be attached to a racking system with the 15-degree tilt. The system will have all the same type of equipment that we see on the rooftop solar panels, like the microinverters, the combiner box, the generator, the disconnects, again, at the solar array field site and at the house where the meter will be. And then there are sizes of some of the equipment that's listed also in the report. An approximately 100 linear foot trench is going to be required for the PV array system, which will go from the house to the field. All utilities are proposed to be underground, and the existing flower bed with the solar arrays will be installed, will be removed prior to the PV installation. So we're just going to go straight to the comments from here. I mean, obviously the criteria for the review is listed within the report. So there's just some general comments for the HPC. So HPC is just reminded about the historic context of this property, which is in the Princeton Battlefield and Stony Brook Settlement Historic District. For the applicant, there are questions that are asked, such as if solar panels are able to be incorporated onto the roof of the new garage that's going to be built, or on part of the existing garage where it'll be minimally or not visible within the property or the right of way. Or if there's any other location on the site that could accommodate this besides the front yard of the property. And the applicant is also asked, because it is such a far distance from the house, is there a benefit for it being so far away? Is there a positive or negative benefit from the field being a farther distance from the energy usage location? The existing fence, there does not seem to be any record of it receiving approval. So we're just asking if the applicant can address that. The fence style and its location really doesn't seem appropriate for the historic house in this location and in this historic district. So, you know, some information about the approval of that fencing would be great. And also for the proposed fencing, if it's extended, is it going to be the same style? What's the material going to be like, the height, and what's being retained on the existing fence? Is it going to retain all features? I know that there's an archway that goes over the doorway, that type of thing. The applicants also asked, what is the height of the solar panels from grade? And if there's any existing trees that will be impacted from this project. And it is recommended that there should be a plan with a survey location of all the trees in the area or near the vicinity, and the condition of these trees that might be impacted. The dimension of the solar array field to the property are inconsistent between the survey plan and the sheet on sheet A2, which is the James Clancy Paradise Solar Electric Plan. So we would expect these to be consistent at one point when they're resubmitted. And the last is really just for consistency. The plans that were submitted should have updated revisions dates on it. So the plans within the packet that we received for A2 also was changed from what we had received for our completeness review. So again, for consistency, there should be revision dates so we can track it as well. In the package also, we were missing sheets 6 and 7 from the agenda package versus what we had in our completeness. So again, we'd like all of that to be consistent with each other. And that's really all I have at this point, Mr. Chair.
We'd like the representative for the applicant to talk now and try to address some of the things you brought up, Elizabeth, along with anything else that's pertinent.
Mr. Albano, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is truthful?
I do.
Thank you very much. If you'd introduce yourself and make your presentation.
Yes, good afternoon. My name's Richard Albano with Paradise Solar, and our potential customer, Bruce and Marcia Wilsey, have asked us to come up with a solar design that would allow them to take advantage of the technology that we have today, but minimizing any impact and visual effect that it might have. And so, as you might be aware, if you've seen in other locations, ground mount solar tends to be fairly large and can be anywhere from 6 feet to 10 feet tall. And what we've come up with basically is what's used in certain situations, and actually what's used on top of commercial buildings, which is a very flat, low-pitched array that would minimize the visual effect of being able to see this. So So we've come up with, and there are certain companies who have taken that technology from using on large commercial flat roofs, and they've created ground screws that allow us to basically take the same design and put it on the ground to minimize the impact and the visual effect of that. Currently, the Wilsey's use about 25,000 kilowatt hours. Generally, customers like to cover as much of that as possible. In this case, to keep the size of the array limited, we're only looking at about 16,000 kilowatt hours that this system would produce. Part of that has to do with the amount of modules that we have there. And of course, the more modules you have, the more space it takes up. But part of it also has to do with it's a very heavily wooded property. And so as I'm sure you're well aware, solar requires sun. And if you have shade, they don't work. And so this is the location of any location on the property that would allow for the most sun so that their investment in solar would pay for itself at some point in the future, as it does for everyone else. And so, we talked about putting it on the building itself, but Mr. Wilsey was adamantly against that. He's got a historic building and he wants to keep that as clean as possible. His current garage or projected new garage is not really conducive to it. Plus it is also heavily shaded the entire day. I don't think that garage gets any sun at any point in time. So we were really limited to where can this go that would make sense to get them what they're looking for, the clean energy that comes with solar. And so with the flower bed being there, and while it was, I guess, used initially in the beginning, of course, like anything, it takes a lot of time and that's gone away. And they thought that would be a good place to put the solar as opposed to a flower bed. We'd have a solar bed. And it would have to be extended a little bit to get them a reasonable amount of power. Because if we stayed within the confines of the current fenced area, it would be a lot reduced in terms of the amount of power they were going to get. So they did suggest doing that. And in conversations with them about the fence, and after reading the document here, they did tell me that their thought on the fence was that it was far away from the house, that they didn't realize or think that they needed approval. So again, I'm just relaying what they've told me in terms of the installation of the fence. The goal would be to add more of the vinyl fence to surround the array and to hide the array. So all that would be seen is pretty much what's seen now is a picket fence that's around, whether it's a flower bed or a solar field, and people passing by really wouldn't know the difference. I think, in terms of setbacks, we're where we need to be. Technology, just again, I'm sure you hear this a lot, but technology is constantly improved. The modules that are used are 480 watt modules. That's a tremendous amount of power. They're also bifacial modules that can get any kind of reflective sun off of the ground that would come off the back. So again, they're getting the maximum amount of power based on the technology we have today. We would use the microinverters, as said. The location really can't be moved. You can't go further back on the property because there are large trees to the east of the array. You can't go closer towards the house because, again, there are large trees to the south. So by coming closer to the house, you're going to greatly impact the production. 170 feet from a installation point of view is minimal. That's generally when we do ground mounts, we're 500 feet to 1,200 feet away from a location. Our electrical engineers tell us they can, size the wires, and yes, there is a little bit line loss, but it's worth it to have it where they want to have it and have it, away from the house. So with that said, I'm really here just to find out how we can work with you, what kind of things are important to you. We can make adjustments. I tell all my customers this is a process, whether it's going through Historic Commission or just dealing with them one-on-one. We start someplace and we work towards what's going to make everybody happy, basically. And that's where I think we're coming from at this point in time is I believe Princeton is positive towards solar in general. It's a good thing. Solar is considered by the state of New Jersey beneficial use. State of New Jersey also has a solar goal or clean energy goal, 50% solar by 2035, I believe it is now. So this would help the state get to where it's going. And honestly, again, the Wilsies have sort of they're paying for panels that aren't going to get as much sun as they should to really maximize their production, but they believe in clean energy so much that they are still willing to do that. So I guess I'm kind of open to your thoughts and questions and how we can work to the benefit of the community and the customers.
Thank you. I jotted down quite a few notes, but I think what I'd like to do is have other commission members make their comments, ask their questions first, and then if some of the questions I have are already covered, we'll go quicker at the end. But I'm fascinated by this, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the commission has to say. Who would like to go first? Tom.
Tom's here. So first of all, I want to congratulate the presenter and his clients for thinking of this along this line, very modern. I guess we are looking at the question of something for the future as opposed to something in the past, which is, we are the past, of course. Just quickly, in terms of the technicals for this unit, you said it's going to be, did I understand, 18,000 kilowatts of 16,000. Is that enough to run the house independently of the grid?
No, it's not. No, the customer is using approximately 25,000 kilowatt hours. And this is
And this would not be, let's say, for blackouts and so on. This would be reducing the overall take from the grid, I suppose.
That's correct. During blackouts, all solar will shut down if it doesn't have some sort of controller and battery backup.
Pardon me for my naivete, but I'm not completely clear on what are the environmental impacts, let's say, of solar. Of course, it's going to be reducing traditional energy use, but are there any issues with the wildlife in the area or the land in it, or is this perceived to be impervious cover, for instance, for our rainwater runoff and so on?
Yeah, no, it's not. And I think a while back, New Jersey had made the conclusion that it's not considered impervious coverage.
Really?
And in fact, we've done many of ground mount systems on farmland. And so not only do we have to have, township approval, state approval, utility approval, we also have the New Jersey Agricultural Department approval. And their focus has always been on not using concrete foundations, minimizing that as much as possible. And ground screws have really been the technology that have helped us do that with even very large systems. In this case, it's only 18-inch long ground screws that would hold this array in place. And everything we do, of course, is sealed by professional engineers. So, all precautions are taken to make sure everything meets code and is safe. Nobody wants anything bad to happen, that's for sure.
This is interesting. What is the square footage of area that will be covered by these panels, please?
It's a little over 1,400 square feet. There is spaces between each row. Of course, because even at a 15-degree tilt, you don't want to shade one panel in front of the other panel.
All right, that probably addresses then the impervious and avoids the contradiction of impervious cover by gravel is, for instance, considered impervious cover when you're trying to do a driveway or a walkway, but this would not be. So that's a difference, I suppose. Okay.
No, in most cases, it just remains grass in most cases, right?
Good. Okay. And the wildlife, no issues with the wildlife, the animals and so on?
Well, again, we've done farms, we've done rural houses. Unless the owner has animals on the property, then generally not. There's no requirement to do anything different with deer or any animals, and there's never been any negative impacts to animals that I'm aware of any.
I understand. I should just ask one quick extra question. Is there any noise associated with the condensing generator that draws the power off these panels?
Again, I'm sure there is some, but nothing that anyone has ever measured, in terms of being a nuisance or a problem.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Who would like to discuss this next? Oh, Christine has her hand up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I was wondering about how well, I have a few questions. How and when and why did the fence go up? Because it has no approval. And my understanding is that if we approve this, we would also have to be approving the fence. And I could see from the survey, it shows that part of it is only up at this point. Then it has a section that says new fence to match or new fence. So, you know, I know that it looks like it's too short to need a building permit, but it certainly needed historic preservation approval.
Well, in terms of the fence, I can tell you my conversation with the Wilsies has been that when they wanted to have a flower garden, their thoughts were that the area was, you know, pretty far away from the house, that they did not apply or get approval to put up that fence. And I had nothing to do with that, of course, and it has nothing to do with solar, but I understand it's there and something that you're dealing with right now. So the fence that is there is surrounding the entire flower bed. Nothing's missing yet. The idea was just to extend it out those additional feet and then put a new vinyl siding fence in the open areas to, again, close it off so it would look just like a fenced-in area.
So the material is not wood, it's vinyl siding.
It's a vinyl material, I believe. That's correct.
Okay.
Again, I don't have any details on the fence itself. I'm only telling you from my observations what I've seen there.
And you also said that there weren't any trees that would grow to cover the field.
Well, all the trees are very mature. So, you know, sure, trees can continue to grow, and we recommend to our customers that over time they trim those trees or top them at least so that they do not cover the fields and take away the advantage of having solar, basically.
Okay, another question, or maybe I would like a clarification from Ms. Kim. I know in the old ordinance for the township, approvals for historic preservation plans were approved for only 1 year, and you had to start work within that year. Is that still in the ordinance? Because it's been several years since the new garage was approved, and I'm wondering if that needs approval again too.
I believe it's actually 2 years, but I'd have to double check to make sure.
Okay, because I think it's been over 2 years, because I think September 2008 it was approved.
I think that was
2018. Sorry.
Let me see. I believe that might have been the.
Oh, that was
That's the conservatory.
Okay, so we don't know the date for the garage then, huh?
Let's see. The garage was approved. Sorry, I thought I had it in here.
I thought you did as well.
It was after that. I could look it up as we're talking, but let me just see about the approval. I can come back to both those questions for you.
Okay, I don't have, that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Christine. I want to follow up on two of Christine's comments that made me think of something. I thought that we had actually looked at catalogs or cut sheets from that very famous, very nice company called Walpole for the fence around the garden. Or maybe that was for the conservatory, but I thought that would have been custom. Does anybody have a recollection of that? All right, I'm wrong. Next is, I don't know how truthful this statement is, but something that's been that I've been told before is that in New Jersey, you can't top out trees. That's actually forbidden. And maybe for solar it's allowed, but I think that's something we all need to learn. But that's all I have on that. Who wants to speak next? Elric.
Yeah, I just want to give a little background. Mike, I've been through the house when it was being worked on in preparation for the Wilsey's residency. I think it's important to realize, first of all, that it's not federal. It was built before there was a nation, so therefore it's colonial. It was probably built in 2 stages. My recollection is that the kitchen wing was the older of the 2 and quite possibly Dutch construction. And the main section would be closer to the end of the 18th century, possibly actually after the Revolution. But in any event, both sections face directly south. It's like this building was built to receive the benefits of the sun from the beginning. That's true of most farmhouses. Your house, David, for instance, the front of your house doesn't face the road, it faces the sun. In any event, I understand and I appreciate the fact that the Wilseys didn't want to put solar panels on either of the main roofs of the house, which would have been on the facade. On the other hand, I believe there's still a lean-to that runs along the brook side facing east with a slighter pitch to it than the roof on the main house. I would be interested to know whether or not there's any possible application there. Certainly it's not large scale and it's a different kind of solar collector, but it might be an alternative. Otherwise, however, I have to say, I'm bothered, not just because this interrupts the view of the house from the road, which is something that's just part of our purview for historic structures in any event, but it also offers the possibility of precedent for a number of our other historic properties, which I think could come back to bite us if we are not if we're not approaching this with a degree of skepticism, and that I think is warranted.
Thank you. Shirley, did you have something? Nope. Okay. Oh, Roger, there you are. Oh, you're muted still.
Yeah, I wish we had an elevation from the road. Looking at the schematic, it's not clear to me the extent to which this is going to block the view of the house. It'll block possibly driving south on Mercer Street, southbound for a moment. But it's also, what, 36, 40 some odd feet back from the road. So I just don't have a real clear sense of what the visual is going to look like, of what the visual impact is. If we go back to our solar guidelines, I think they offer some background on this, and I think it says somewhere in them that a fence is not something that we should consider visible. I'm not clear on that. We'd have to go back to that, but I should have reread them prior to coming here, mea culpa. But again, I wish we had some photographs of photo simulations, which would give us a much better sense of what was there and what the impact would be. It seems pretty far away from the house. There's some sheds there. It is a big piece of property. My seat of the pants sense is that, unlike Elric, I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact on the view of the house. Very hard to see the house because it's pretty far back.
I think Elizabeth put her hand up at the time when Roger said something. So go ahead, Elizabeth. Muted.
Thank you. I just wanted to circle back to the questions that Christine had. So it's 24 months for the efficiency of the application, and the garage was approved September 2021.
Oh.
And I just want to make a few other comments to ones that were made already. So if you look at the survey plan, Roger, you can actually see where the house is sited on the property and where the solar array field is with the fencing around it. So even though the house is set back from the road, the solar array field and the fencing is closer to the street. So, and the other question I have is, if you look at the photographs that were submitted, the majority of trees within that area are evergreen trees. Obviously, you're not going to top off an evergreen tree. And the evergreen tree is going to create more shade than you would a deciduous through all the seasons. Again, that's why I thought it was important within the report that a tree survey be provided on the plan so we could actually see where these trees are, the size of it, and also if there's any impact to the root system if they have to put that trench in as well, because that's important, because any trees that are impacted, you're going to have to do a tree compensation with the arborist. But I think that with that tree location, it's going to kind of have a true telling of how those plantings are going to impact actually the solar viability of that field in that area. Because as Rich and I have both said, you know, all those trees there are very mature, so they are tall and they are worthy of being there.
Christine.
Thank you. I was thinking more about the fence. I don't know if the design is really appropriate, but the fact that it's plastic rather than wood does bother me. And I'm not saying that it should necessarily be totally replaced, but if it's added to, it should be added to with wood matching the design that is approved. The thing is that lots of times pieces of fence fall down and people replace all. If it's all vinyl, there would be like a it would be an inducement to replace it with more vinyl. I don't know how practical this is, but I'm just wondering what other people are thinking about that.
Before we go there, Christine, could you kind of restate the last couple of sentences? There was some audio breakup. At least I had audio breakup.
Me too.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm going to try to move closer to the microphone. What I said was that I thought that whatever fence is approved, that if it's added to, it should be wood and not vinyl, because people tend to, when there's a part of a fence that comes down and it's all vinyl, they replace it with vinyl. And I'd like to see it being replaced with wood. And as I said, whatever it goes there should match whatever we approve as far as a fence goes. I don't know how practical all of this is, but I hate how other members, could you hear me now? Were you able to hear me?
I think most of it. No? Okay. Why don't you go back to where, what I think you were saying was when sections of the vinyl fence might need to be repaired because of different reasons, that it should be repaired with wood. And I guess my question is, could that be a condition of the approval? That the existing vinyl fence that goes into this new fence that we're hoping is going to be wood, could that be a condition? Fences are sections always being repaired and stuff from my experience. Is that kind of what you're saying, Christine?
Yes, that's similar or what I said. Yes, I just don't want to see more and more vinyl being put there.
Good point.
So if it's added in any way, even now when it's enlarged, it should be wood.
Noted. Frida.
Yes, I was wondering, I'm trying to look through all of the documentation for this project, and I'm wondering how high these panels are. And also, is there a way to get a mock-up of the whole scenario? I think that's, that's an easy way to do it, to be able to envision this, because I too am a little concerned about the view from the street, even though it's far, but I think you'll see the panels, and it seems like there might be a lot of them. And they're not, they're not laying on the ground, they're propped up. I was trying to figure out where I could find any dimension, and I didn't. I found a 4-inch height dimension somewhere, but when you look at the picture, it's not only 4 inches. So I'm wondering if a mock-up could be done, because most of what was submitted was in plan form, survey form, so it's flattened. So you don't have a sense of the volume of everything.
If I may,
please.
As part of the design, if you have the design package A-4, it shows the height of the modules.
A4. Okay, it's not okay. I'm looking at the electronic version. What's the name of the sheet?
Well, it's on the bottom right-hand corner. It says A-4.
No, I know how to read it. I'm looking on the electronic version on the township website. And is it an Aero compact drawings? Is it compact ground? What is the name of it? Not the A4, not the number.
It's probably design plans. I'm not sure how it's listed. Let's see. I think it's listed as property. No, James A. Clancy drawings.
Okay, let's see.
I think that you've got a elevation of 2 feet 4 inches from grade. Is that correct, Rich? On that drawing A-4?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And there's also, as part of the package I submitted, are pictures of a similar site, basically that shows how they would lay out. This picture uses ballast blocks. We would not use ballast blocks. We would use ground screws. But it's exact same layout, basically.
So the highest point from the ground is what?
28 inches.
28 inches?
That's correct. 2 feet 4 inches.
So that's like tabletop height, correct?
That's right. Tabletop is 30 inches.
No, okay.
Yep. But I mean, it's pretty close. I just wanted to clarify that to get a visual.
I'm good. Elizabeth and Shirley waiting. Do you want to bring up that drawing, Elizabeth, or
which one?
The one we were discussing that had the dimensions, or do we want to see the one with the anchored by the block?
Oh, I don't know where the anchored by the block is. I can try to pull up the one with the
I didn't remember seeing that today either. Of course, I downloaded it to my phone, so everything's tiny.
I don't know. I submitted 13 copies of all of this, so I hope you have it.
I see the sheet A4. Richard, what's the other sheet number that you have the anchor block? Is that on the same sheet or no?
No, that's part of the 6 or 7 pictures that I sent. Pictures from the road, pictures from the house.
Yeah, I think it's the last photograph you had there.
That's it. Yes, it.
Yep.
Exactly.
I can try to pull that up, but let me just make my comment before I search for that. So I think the point that I was trying to make is, even though the house is set back from the road, and the solar array field with the fencing is going to be closer. I feel that that is a distraction from the historic house, and that I think the commission wants to be careful about what they're approving as far as what they see on this historic property in this historic district. Again, you know, the appropriateness of that fence, style, location, everything in front of the house. I feel like it could really take away from the historic character and the significance of that house and property. But I'm going to go now and look for that.
Help me remember, I drive that stretch all the time. The Wilsey's property kind of rises up from the road surface, or is flat with the road surface, but then kind of slopes down to the Stony Brook or whatever's back there. I'm just trying to figure out if we're going to be looking up into the solar panels. Are they going to be at the level of where we're sitting in the car or walking? I think Elizabeth is bringing up a good question that I didn't think to stop on the road today and look at it and try to visualize that. Did anyone else have that? Roger.
Well, just getting back to a couple of things. You know, they're trying to do the right thing here, and I think we have to give due credit where credit is due. And in this instance, certainly, although mounting the panels on the house is impractical because of the shade, we wouldn't want the you know, our guidelines pretty much say sort of set a higher bar for panels on the house than panels in the field. You know, maybe, you know, and we're looking for visual compatibility. Maybe I would agree with Christine that a wood fence would certainly be more visually pleasing than some shiny vinyl fence, which always screams plastic to me wherever they are. But maybe, you know, since they're trying to do the right thing, maybe they'll take an extra step and do some landscaping. You know, some short bushes would do it. These things are pretty darn low to the ground. It's something that the deer won't eat. You know, I just think we have to be a little more flexible, given that, you know, their objectives are very good.
Noted. Shirley, did you have your hand up?
Yes, there was one concern I think Elizabeth brought it up about the trees and whether or not there's too much shade because there's so many trees. But if you look at the panels here, it's in an ideal spot because all of the trees are away from the panels and they tend to be shorter. The other problem with these big trees is because of the storms we have, if any of those trees happen to uproot and fall on these panels, that would be a concern.
Okay, and I think I saw Tom, and then I'd like to have a chance to give my thoughts. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I take Roger's point very well. We have to give credit where credit is due. So again, congratulations to Mr. Albano. And this may not be a question for you, Mr. Albano, but you can help guide us. Just from a homeowner's point of view, since over here in my own district in Riverside, I've recently seen a neighbor do a thermal unit on their property on Cedar Lane, which is to say dig up the front lawn and do some kind of thermal oriented energy. Has your client, or this is not your business, of course, and it would be competitive to your concern, but how are we to think about that as an alternative, if I may ask you?
Well, I think you're talking about geothermal.
Yes.
Yes. So geothermal is for heating and cooling.
Sorry. Pardon me. Not geothermal, because we don't have much magma. we got a high water table, but not a high magma table in Princeton. But my point was, they have used some underground system that allows for cooling and thus temperature, electricity reduction by the use of cool ground air.
Well, all I'm aware of is the geothermal, which would allow to cool your house because it circulates either water or some kind of a fluid through a closed loop system, right? That would cool your house to a degree. And also in the wintertime actually warms your house to a degree. So you're using less energy that way.
Yeah.
The downside to geothermal though is it uses a lot of electricity because there's a pump that's constantly moving the water through the system. And so while people who do geothermal all of a sudden realize that their electricity bills have doubled, they then look at solar to sort of offset that, so that they've netted out, and they're getting heating and cooling as most efficiently as possible without using any kind of fossil fuels, and they're using solar energy to cover that added cost of electricity that comes from using the geothermal.
Understood. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
If I'm
Go
also
ahead,
just.
Did your audio go out?
David, is it okay if I say one more thing?
Oh yes, I would hope you would.
Okay, sure. You know, I want to just understand that the solar in New Jersey and the National Electric Code requires that there be a barrier between the solar itself and people, animals, those kinds of things that could go near. Solar is UL approved. Wires are all locked. Everything is coded. It's probably safer than the sockets we have in our house that little kids could put their fingers in. So from a safety point of view, everything's been done to make solar as safe as possible. But at the same time, there's this very vague barrier part to the electric code, National Electric Code. And so we've gotten approved in many towns doing one of two things. One is either we coat the back of the array when it's a total array with one plane that goes up to maybe 6 feet or 8 feet high with a fenced area just along the back of the array. So in order to get to any wires, you literally have to come with wire cutters and to cut the wires. The other option would be just to put a fence around it. And, you know, it's a safety fence similar to what you would put around the swimming pool. So, and in this case, there was already a fence there that would act as that barrier. And by extending the fence, again, whatever material it needs to be, that's up to the Wilsies how they feel about that. But as long as that there needs to be a barrier, and can you put planting in front of the barrier? Of course. Any kind of landscaping that you would find acceptable would be fine. But some kind of fence would need to be around this, whether it's this fence or some other fence.
Thank you. If you all would indulge me, I'm just going to share some of my thoughts, and I think we have two more hands up from our commission. One is that you all don't know this, but working with the subcommittee on the master plan, I have forwarded to Elizabeth and other members a big question or desire for the master plan to have something about what are the optimum ways that in our community we can have solar collection, shared solar collection, something that maybe doesn't have to be on roofs right next to each other in the more densely built up areas. And I don't know the answers to any of that, but I've just asked that be put as part of what we're requesting, or everyone's requesting, to be considered in the future. And I hope we really get somewhere with that, because I think there are some really exciting options out there. The second thing I just want to say is 1,400 square feet is a big area. That's more than the whole first floor of my house. So I think we want to kind of keep that in mind. It's a large property, but it's not a small installation. Not that I'm saying anything's wrong with it. I just want to make sure everyone's got the visual perspective on that. And then I kind of almost always bring up questions like this about future technology, what might happen, you know, when the solar panels delivering the same service to the Wilsies could be smaller. What do we do about that? Do we do anything that kind of says, yes, this is so important, but yes, it's a big visual intrusion, and it would be delightful at some point if it could be smaller, it could be smaller. Not asking people to double their investment, but, you know, is there a way to anticipate that and get something going on that? My next comment. Are there other approaches that would allow the solar array to be less massive? And I really don't know what I'm talking about here, but let me tell you the example I've seen and it's already a couple of years old. But if y'all are familiar with the historic site called Shelburne Farms in Vermont, a gigantic property, doing a lot of preservation work, and also has big electrical needs and huge open spaces. What they've done in some places, looking at that entire landscape and figuring out the different viewpoints from the higher points and the lower points and from the shore and from the house and the gardens, is to figure out the least intrusive places to put solar panels. And I think they've done a great job with that. But one thing I noticed there is the models they have sit on a center pedestal, and they have the ability to be rotated some. And I don't know if that's to follow the sun during the day or the sun during different seasons. But if technology like that allows already for a smaller mass, that would be something we'd be very interested to know. And so the question I think sort of been answered. Fencing around the solar array is something that's required. And then I just wrote down some interesting notes that you could have your solar array quite a ways from the building where you need to use the service. And that was a great thing to learn, which goes back to the whole thing about, is there a slightly better, different place to place this on the property? And my last comment would be the trade-off of losing some trees if you could move this whole array to a location where maybe less visually intrusive, still works well, but it might be a loss of some trees, which I know that argument also, but I'm just wondering all these different thoughts. And I'll leave it at there, and I'm going to ask Elizabeth what it is we need to be accomplishing tonight, besides just some fun discussion.
Well, I was raising my hand, David, because I'm looking to see if you wanted me to bring that photograph of the that Rich had submitted in his package, which showed the ground-mounted solar arrays.
Yeah, actually, Ed held it up kind of old school style, and I
did.
think
Okay, I'm sorry.
Does anybody else wish to have it brought back up?
If everyone has it, it's in your packet. It's the very last photograph, I think, in there. Thanks, Ed. Good job. Okay, that's all I had, but I know that Christine is hands up.
Okay, thanks. Christine, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to say that if this existing fence or location is approved, the archway, I'm assuming, will be removed, and that should be clarified.
Oh, good point. Because it would be off center and kind of funny looking.
Well, the archway is in the rear section of the field of the fenced area, so that wasn't going to have to be touched at all. Honestly, that was, if you're at the road, it's all the way behind the array, and so the only thing that was going to be touched would be the front of that fenced area, and that was going to be moved out closer towards the road with new sides added in. So the archway is not as part of our plan anyhow. Doesn't mean anything can't be done, of course. But at this point in time, the archway was going to remain as part of the original plan.
Thank you. Ed.
David, I just wanted to point out in the guidelines, which the board adopted several years ago, there is a section which talks about visibility. And it says in that section that fences and freestanding walls are considered permanent, and objects hidden by them shall not be considered visible. That's part of your standard in what you adopted several years ago. That was all.
That's a very good thing to remind us of. So, Elizabeth or Ed, what is it we need to be doing? Are we're going to have a resolution on this? Do people feel like we're to that point, or give me some guidance, please?
Well, David, the first thing we ought to consider, if the members of the board are comfortable or done asking questions, I notice on our meeting tonight, we have 16 participants. So there may be people in the public that you would want to call upon and have them give an opportunity if they're there to speak. After that occurs, what you're being asked to do tonight, since there's no zoning permits or any other permits necessary, is basically grant historic preservation plan approval for the installation of the solar arrays. If that passed, we would come back like we would do with any other approval with a resolution next month. So it's really you're the final arbiter. You're the ones that are going to make the final decision.
Thank you. Elizabeth, do we have people from the audience?
There are no hands raised, but I will maybe allow a few minutes for them to have an opportunity to do that if they have any comments.
Mm-hmm. And Leighton, this will be a good time for you to add to our discussion, if you have something. Yep.
Thank you, David. I think the discussion has been very interesting, and I've enjoyed it. But I don't have really anything to add at this time. Thank you for the opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
No hands are raised.
Okay, then I guess.
Next step would be for the board to deliberate, and maybe you could ask informally kind of how the board members feel, and then eventually take a motion to either approve or not approve.
Thank you. I don't see any new hands. Does anybody have anything else they want to add? Okay, my only comment here would be to know that, you know, it's been stringently looked at that the only site that makes sense for the technology and other reasons puts it between the road and the house. And I don't know if anybody else even agrees with that, but that's kind of where my head is right now. Tom, you're on mute.
Yeah, sounds like this is a goer. I think we have to accommodate the owners here to the extent, however, that it's not visible from the street. So the fencing is going to make a difference to me. I would like Christine prefer the wood that would fade and not glare at us bright white like a vinyl fence would do. But, and I am sensitive to our mission here, but as I said at the outset, this is sort of the future bumping up against the past. And I'm not seeing anything here that is overly encroaching on the past, as it were, as well as it's well disguised in my view.
Yeah, it's such an improvement over trying to fit it onto a roof of an existing building, even a 20th or 21st century building. They never really come out right. So this is vastly improved. And the other thing is, you know, from my preservation training, there was always talk about projects that touched original fabric, and therefore, and if they were destroying the fabric, then it wasn't really very reversible. This doesn't touch the fabric at all. It touches or occupies the view shed, which is part of what we're about, but it's not like putting something on this building that can't be taken away, or that the whole field could be taken up later on when there's something else. As I mentioned earlier, if there was better technology that let even be more inobtrusive. But I've been thinking about this for a long time. And to be honest, I've been trying to figure out how to put a solar array in a section of my yard as opposed to on my house, because I just can't think of how to do it nicely without taking down every tree, which is what they always ask me. So what does everybody do? Are we in, I guess, just the straw vote? Are we in favor of this project? Should we keep moving?
Does it need a motion?
Yeah.
No, Ed said we could just kind of see what people thought, and then we can make a motion. Are people in favor of this? Raise of hands or something? Okay.
Again, I think I'm in favor with some kind of control over the type of fencing that is put up around it.
Okay. I see a lot of nodding heads.
I mean, I have a bunch of, sort of, excuse my ignorance of of all the rules, but if they wanted to put a privet hedge around the whole property, would they have to come to us? If they wanted to put a fence around a vegetable garden, would that might be reasonable to come to us? But for landscaping a property perimeter, for example, is that within our purview? Ed, I guess.
Well, I think, Roger, the answer is yes, depending upon where it goes and the impact on the visibility of the historic structure. They probably wouldn't have to get a permit. I mean, anything lower than 4 feet, you don't have to get permits as long as you're not on a boundary line. And but I think otherwise they would come to see Christine. I think most of those would be administratively approved and reviewed. But if it was a dramatic installation around the entire property of an historic site in an historic zone, I think they would probably send them to the full board.
Thanks for the clarification.
Does anyone want to put forward a resolution noting that we would like to have the plan come back to us with what the fence or wall might look like around the property?
I'll make that motion. I move that we approve this project advancing, subject to a possibility to review what the landscaping or fence or disguise will look like.
Thank you. Second?
I'd second that.
Opposition? All in favor?
David, excuse me, clarification. The applicant has given us some pictures of the existing fence around the flower garden. I believe there's some cones out there. Is that right, Mr. Albano? Which show how much further it's going to be enlarged.
That's
we heard
correct,
earlier,
yes.
Somebody suggests that if that enlargement was identical to the fence that currently exists, but it was built in wood, then that would be a condition you all considered and I think talked about. The question is, do you want that done and then landscaping put around the outside of that fence? And you want to take a look at that before you take final action, or is that sufficient?
What's anybody think? I'm good with it, just as the fence. But please tell me what your thoughts are.
As maker of the motion, I'm all right with the fence. I don't think we want to overstipulate the exact planting of all the landscaping and so on. But I do wish to, and perhaps Mr. Albano can help us with this, be able to see something a little more concretely as to what the final result would look like. I don't know if that's doable on a computer or whatnot. But I'm trying to express the sense that let's move it forward and yet still be shown what the final look is going to be, if that is possible. Is that possible, Mr. Albano?
Yeah, I think we can do something. One of our guys is a CAD designer, and I think he might be able to take this and develop some kind of a more realistic look for you, possibly.
Good. So,
so Mr. Poole, that being said, would you want them to come back next month to the board, or would you want to defer that to an administrative review and approval by either a subcommittee or by the chair and our historic preservation officer?
What's anybody's thought?
So the question I have is, I mean, if it's going to be presented, what's the purpose of it if the application is already going to be approved unless it's subject to approval?
Well, that would be the point of coming back.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm saying if it's approved today, there's no reason for Mr. Albano to show us that because it's already approved. Because let's say he comes back and the subcommittee or the chair and myself determine, you know, we don't like this. It's too late.
All right, good point. And we're making great ground on all of this other stuff. I think it's fair to have it be subject to and subcommittee or Elizabeth and oh, I guess it would end up being me again. Let's do a subcommittee. But do we have an existing? Do we have a landscape subcommittee? Ed.
And David, I think Elizabeth's recommendation, and I think the theme today with all of you might be to continue this hearing until the meeting in June. Have the applicant come back and present the final appearance of what this extended fence is going to look like, and then you can vote on the final product.
I like that approach. Christine?
I just want to, I mean, my feeling is that if there are going to be extensions and future changes to that fence, it should all be, any new part of the fencing should be wood.
You said that right.
Okay.
I just wanted to make clear that I'm hoping that people are in agreement.
Yeah. Did I see, Elric, did you have a hand up?
Unmute.
Mute.
Elric, you're muted.
You're muted.
Elric, you're muted.
I lost power, believe it or not. That's why I was off for a while.
Well, if you only had solar there.
Yeah, exactly. Got a new customer there, Mr. Albano.
I just wondered, is it possible to compute what the benefits, what the relative value of the solar would be if the size of the area enclosed was reduced to the size of the existing vegetable garden?
Of course, yes. I can almost tell you just by looking at what I have here, it would be about half. Approximately about 8,000, maybe 7,000 kilowatt hours instead of 16,000 kilowatt hours. Again, their usage is 25,000 kilowatt hours. So from an investment point of view, a customer generally will look at, most people want at least 100%, but, sometimes 50 to 75% is sufficient. If you keep it to the size of the existing flower bed, it's probably like 25% of what their needs are. And that would be up to the Wilsies. And unfortunately, as you know, as things get smaller, they get more expensive because you have less to, amortize the costs, the fixed costs over top of. So we're willing to do whatever they want, basically.
This isn't something you can just add on to because the conduits or whatever are based on one field and not a larger one?
Well, you can design it based on a larger one, but the real problem is state and utility approvals. So if you design a system, let's say it's 7,000 DC watts right now, and they want to add to it, they have to have a new application with, of course, new permits and new utility approval, new state approval, and it has to be actually a separate system. So there has to be a separate meter on it because the incentives from the state of New Jersey are on the first size system. So you end up with two systems and two meters in order to get the benefits of the incentives that are available.
Okay, enough said. Thank you.
Okay. They always make it more complicated than it has to be, but that's the way it is.
So, Mr. Albano, can you come back next month?
Yeah, certainly.
To provide the drawing, which the commission.
Yes, we'll work on that, and of course I'll submit it to you ahead of time so you can take a look at it and make sure it sort of meets what's been requested. I'd be happy to come back.
So since the motion was made and seconded, do I need to withdraw this motion to make this technically correct?
I was just about to ask that.
Yes, Tom, I think you should. Someone should make a motion to continue the hearing tonight to our meeting on June. What date is that, Elizabeth?
June 19th.
June 19th, 4 o'clock, or shortly thereafter. And no more notice has to be provided. And we can continue the hearing at that time with the additional information.
Is that to say that I will withdraw the motion and then to move that we table this for further consideration on June 19th?
Till June 19th, that's fine. Second and all in favor would be fine.
I so move.
Second.
I second. Roger second. Excellent. All in favor? Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts.
Well, thank you. It's a exciting kind of project, and I won't say anything more. Just that we're learning a lot these days about solar and collection, and this has been very enlightening this evening.
Excellent. Appreciate it.
All right. Can we bring Julie back?
She's on her way.
Oh, good.
Just randomly to your question about technology, I have some friends out in Hopewell with a Princeton address who've got a large array. It was put in about 20 years ago. And right now, if they redid it, they could get twice the power out of it that they get currently because the technology has improved that much. Maybe even more than they get more than twice the bang for their buck than they bought the house with the array already there. But it's things are improving quite rapidly.
I think it's exciting, and I mean, there are projects that we all can identify in different places that we don't like, that if they've been like just a couple of years sooner, they might have been able to be designed much more sublimely or something.
Hey,
okay,
Ed,
Julie, take over.
We really appreciate your time. And we'll see you on June 19th.
Thank you,
Bye.
Ed. I really appreciate your help.
Thank you. All right. So we only have public comment. Yes, Elizabeth.
You want to circle back to the announcements that we missed at the beginning?
Oh, yeah, I didn't do announcements because a lot of people weren't here. So yes, let's go back to announcements. Thank you, Ed. Bye. Have a good meeting.
So I have two announcements. One is, again, to remind people that we have the New Jersey History and Historic Preservation Annual Conference, June 12th to 13th in Stockton, Atlantic City. If those who want to register. And Julie, I'm going to pass it over to you. You sent me that great information about Preservation New Jersey. And that
was from David. I don't know,
David. Excuse me.
Yeah, that David sent it to me, and then I was actually waiting to pick up Antonio, and so I looked at the link and sent it back to you guys.
And I think that's great. And I think that if you could share that with everyone, it has everything to do with what the commission has concerns and issues with. I think that it obviously it's kind of across the board kind of comments. It talks about members and staff, about challenges and controversies on demolition, new construction, redevelopment, enforcement, all things that we talk about and struggle with. So I think that that's going to be really an interesting panel discussion.
Well, I'll try to copy the link and send it in an email to everyone. But when I tried to click on the URL, I couldn't, it wasn't like a live link.
Okay.
So then I don't know. I tried to go to their website. I tried to find advertising for it. I don't see anything on the website. So David, I don't know if you got an email or something, but the only place I've seen it is Instagram.
And so
I may have only seen it on social media too, so maybe it's not even real. I'll take it on to try and find out what's there, what's not, because it looks really good.
Yeah, and so everyone else, it's Thursday, May 25th at 7 p.m. It's a Zoom, and I don't do social media, so I don't get any of those. So yeah, if anyone could send it to everyone, that would be great. And those are the announcements I had.
Okay. So anyone from the public with their hand up?
There's no hands up at this time, and there's only one participant there.
Okay. All right. Christine, do you want to give us an update on the master plan, or what you know about so far? You're on mute.
Madam Chair, may I be permitted to be excused? I have to jump to another meeting. And
yeah, no problem.
Good to be with you, and good discussion tonight.
Have a good night, Tom. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're looking very sharp.
Yeah.
I had given the draft to Roger, and Roger worked on it, and he sent it to me about 10 days ago, maybe longer, maybe shorter. And since then, I was working with Elizabeth on the request for proposal for the design guidelines, and I also had other matters, and I didn't get to it yet. And I think I sent a message to David and to Roger saying that I wasn't going to be able to really do anything until this week. So I don't know what Roger did. And David, didn't you say earlier that you had sent something else regarding this?
I thought I had sent to you and Elizabeth. I thought Roger too. I know Elizabeth gave me some answers back about what's being done in other places for community solar collection and how that might be something that benefits us, particularly in the more densely populated areas. And I think Roger said that was something that was going on in some other places too. There's a lot to learn, but my point was just to try and get that to be a priority somewhere for the community, because it affects a lot of different aspects of Princeton, historic preservation, but many others. And just, I wanted it just to be in the mix.
Yeah,
I was just wondering, because I want to look for that. Did you send that recently, David?
Oh dear.
That was a while back, David.
I'll look for it. And I don't know that I had anything more than I just heard it.
Okay, I'll do searches because I don't recall seeing it.
I'm sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah, the whole idea is called community solar. In Princeton, under I think the last mayoral administration, was pursuing this fairly aggressively. They wanted to put a solar array on the public works site on River Road. And I'm not sure if that got lost in the scandals, that the legal issues that ensued with that, or exactly what happens. I don't know if Leighton has more information than I do, but as you can understand, given all the paperwork and red tape that's involved with individual solar, community solar is also complicated. Sustainable Princeton has some stuff on their website about it, but it is something that Princeton has looked into, because not everybody can afford to put solar on their roof or wants to do that, but they want to take advantage of non-fossil fuel energy. So I think it's still out there, but nothing's been done in the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
I think
like other big issues.
Roger, one of the reasons maybe it didn't go too far, if it's on the public works site on River Road, is River Road is actually going through a change, and there's supposed to be a design change on that site, actually, because I know that Julie, Elric, and David, I don't remember, maybe it was you, we had gone out to the site and we had talked to Dominique, and we had looked at some of the buildings that they were interested in demolishing. And, there was some input from the HPC there about what they thought that was worth preserving and other things that they didn't have any problems with. So that might be a reason why, if that was the site they were looking at, that it didn't go much further, because they probably were trying to master plan this design over at River Road.
All right. Well, we'll keep talking solar next month. So, or at least you guys will.
Yeah, I can check with Christine Simonton and see if she's got any kind of update about it.
Okay, great. Yeah, Elizabeth.
So Elric also has another list that he provided me, and I did ask him for a Word version of it, where he had some Princeton Township sites which he had collected in May 2023, or it stated that. So Christine's like saying, oh my gosh. But we've asked him to send a Word version so it's easy to be able to add to the list. And I think that, Elric, you said you do have it in a Word version, right?
Yeah, but it's only partial. It's 13 pages, but it's just commentary. And basically what I was trying to do was to describe the property specifically, in many instances, the people who built these places. Some of them are 20th century, and in particular, the architects, because there's so many that are well known for other projects. And again, I've thought before about the possibility of having non-contiguous historic districts, and that might very well apply to architects themselves. So wherever possible, if I know of other buildings which are designed by the same person in our area, let alone their larger commissions that are better known outside of Princeton, I've included that. Another thought on all that is that with these non-contiguous areas, in the past, we've talked about the possibility of individuals who are sympathetic to historic preservation, who might be more than willing to allow their buildings to be designated. And in some cases, it might be that we could start with some of those and safeguard specific properties, adding to these non-contiguous areas as time goes by. But anyway, it's been fascinating for me because I've wound up going back to the Recollector, but going through Princeton Past and Present, going through the citations on the computer. I've learned a lot, so I'll share it.
Elizabeth, if you wouldn't mind sending it to me as well when you get it, because what I did and what I sent to Christine was to go through David's list and Elric's list and look at the overlap and just kind of keep track of that. And so I'm fairly familiar with Elric's list, so I can kind of triangulate and quadrangulate that to make sure there's no duplication.
I'd like to have that list, this new list. So.
Okay, yeah. What I sent you, Christine, is Elric's compiled list with the showing where it overlapped with the other list. But I also second the idea of the individual properties. I think about Adrian Trevison's house on the corner of Hamilton and Moore. He would be probably more than willing to look into historic designation. I love Elric's idea of an architect's district, a literary district. It all has great possibilities.
I think it's great. Just remember the process. Every nomination has to have research backing it up and an eligibility component, as well as public hearings and support from the community. So it's a long process. But thank you. Any other announcements? Otherwise, I'll let everybody go. It's beautiful outside. All right. So if not, motion to adjourn? Okay. I see a bunch of motions. Okay.
Thank you. A second.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Leighton.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. We'll let you go.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Buenas noches.